Several recent encounters suggest there might be more things in heaven and earth than we can dream of.
So are werewolves just a Hollywood creation, or do half-man, half-wolf creatures really exist? Now, tonight, we kick off our Conspiracy Theory Month series, which was
The legend of the vampire actually goes back for centuries, and it exists in some form or another in almost every culture. In fact, some people believe the first vampire story was in the Bible.
Well, for decades, only crackpots and crazy people believed in UFOs. That's what I thought anyway. And then in recent years, it turns out that governments have been taking them seriously all along.
Try and clear up an ancient mystery with the help of a prominent veterinarian who says she can prove that Bigfoot exists and that he's related to all of us.
New reports, 5 pilots coming forward over the weekend saying they've had multiple mid-air encounters with high-flying, fast-moving objects.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for tuning in to Season 4, Episode 6 of the hit underground paranormal radio show known as PONG, Pair of Normal Guys podcast, brought to you by Celestial Oddities Radio. As always, I will be your host, Frater Crow.
And I'm your co-host, Daniel James.
And we want to thank you very much for tuning in tonight, whether you're tuning in live or you stream this after the fact. We do appreciate your patronage and support. Please make sure you click the like, share, follow, and subscribe buttons on whatever platform you're listening in from, whether it be Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We used to be on a lot of other platforms, and we consolidated down to just the video aspect from audio and video kind of separately. And we are on those 3 platforms. So if you're listening out there and want to know another platform that we're on, maybe you like YouTube more than Facebook or vice versa, we are on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And share us around. Feel free to show your friends. We always appreciate the support. If you've missed any of our past 5 episodes, please go back and check them out. We've had some great ones so far this season. 3 amazing seasons prior to this, just jam-packed with different discussions, deep dives into topics, and happenings that have happened out there, as well as many different calls from around the world from listeners such as you guys out there telling us your experiences and stories, and have had some great guests on for interviews as well. So make sure you go back and check them out. And tonight we will be bringing you another great episode. Daniel, why don't you tell them a little bit about what we're getting into tonight, what we're going to be talking about, and then we can kick it off.
Yeah, man. So tonight is, instead of doing like an incident or an event, we're going to talk a little bit about a concept that I'm passionate about that I know for a fact applies to all of us. And if we look at it from the right perspective, understanding the way this mechanism works, we can use it to help better navigate our lives and explore sort of, the journey. And tonight's episode will be a sort of metaphysical, esoteric look into the concept of the hero's journey.
Now, it's interesting because when we think of hero's journey, I mean, it's a powerful archetype, folks, that is explained in pretty much everything we see, from movies to books to comics to everything in between. I mean, some popular ones right off the top of my head, at least, would be, think of Luke Skywalker in Star Wars. Think of,
That's right.
Bilbo Baggins in The Hobbit, or his son Frodo Baggins in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Harry Potter, just a lot of different popular, characters that we know of have gone through turmoil, who've gone through darkness, who've gone through these events in life that put them onto a journey that not only did they accomplish something and face that darkness, but in so doing, they have found themselves, have changed, have awoken, and have returned back home a very, very different person than when they started.
Right.
So it's a very powerful archetype. It's a very powerful setup for a lot of great stories, but it doesn't have to just be fiction, folks. I mean, you yourself can go through a hero's journey, as Daniel and I have, and we'll be talking a little bit about that this evening.
That's right, brother. You nailed it. Listen, tonight we're going to describe our own respective sort of self-prescribed hero's journeys in an effort to not only express ourselves, but also help you sort of identify what your own journey is. So what I'll do to start off is I'm going to read like the general, very basic description of what the hero's journey is. It reads as: the hero's journey is a common narrative archetype or story template that involves a hero who goes on an adventure, learns a powerful life lesson, wins a victory with that newfound knowledge, and then returns home transformed. So that's a formula that you can actually sort of rinse and repeat. Like Frater said, it's commonly used in television and film. And one thing that you'll see it in is your lead character of the movie, of the story, of the comic. Uh, it's it's sort of like a rinse and repeat that's used in narrative story structure. And the reason why it's used so many times over and over and over is because it reflects that of the hero's journey of our own lives. So whether you are the villain in somebody's story, you are still the hero of your own. Always from your own perspective, you have a mission that you set out on, in this case, our lives. You go through the journey, you have challenges in front of you, you learn and discover more about yourself while trying to resolve these challenges. Then you sort of achieve some sort of, in a sense, victory, or you sort of get to the goal. And then, as a result of the journey that you've gone through, no matter how long it takes, you have now grown, you have now evolved and ascended to another version of yourself that has, sort of, in a sense, almost been born again anew with the experience that you've collected throughout your hero's journey. As you return home, then now you have grown in some way. So that is sort of an introduction description of what the hero's journey is. And now that we've explained it, you'll see this sort of rinse and repeat method through pretty much every TV show or movie or story that you watch that centers around, a main character. That is the sort of archetype, like you mentioned, that's the perfect word. So now that we have a description, an introduction of what the hero's journey is, we chose this topic tonight because it can get very metaphysical and it can get very esoteric, which you guys are going to see as Frater and I begin to sort of, in a sense, give you a look into our own individual subjective hero's journey. And then I hope that in some way that helps you sort of discover your own. So I will go ahead and begin, Frater, unless you have any questions, comments before we get
No, I
started.
think it's a perfect introduction to it, and I'd love to hear your stories. I know a good deal of it, but I always love hearing it again and
Right.
kind of your journey yourself. And I think the fans out there will love to hear that. And then we'll kind of go back and forth with how that's affected our life, how we're thankful for the trials and
Right.
tribulations as well as the victories and triumphs. And I think it'll be a great episode.
Right, man. Yeah, absolutely. The idea is to sort of express the gratitude and be thankful for, in a sense, even just our lives. So my hero's journey gets a little metaphysical. It's a little strange to those new to these concepts, but I am an actor and a filmmaker and a storyteller. That is how I generate my living, but it's also how I express myself as an artist and a creative. And throughout the years, I sort of always had, let's take it back to when I was maybe a teenager. I'd always known that I was meant to sort of like pursue the path of working in the entertainment industry, whether that was acting or being a filmmaker, but working in media production to some degree. I've always known that that was resonated with me very much. And I knew that in terms of like my path, my life path, that was where the energy was drawing me. That's where I was being pulled. So at an early age, I just sort of dove into the concept of filmmaking and writing and composing music, being a singer, being part of several metal bands throughout my life. But generally speaking, working in the arts and being a creative, expressive person, I've known that that was my path. That was my medium to sort of discover myself. And if, we all have a self-prescribed mission, which of course I will say, it's important to understand that if you exist right now in this moment, that is enough. You don't need a mission. You don't need a goal. You don't need sort of like a purpose, unless you assign yourself meaning and you assign yourself purpose and you assign yourself a mission. Now that's okay. That motivates us. That gives us sort of motive. But I wanted to just start off by saying that you don't always have to have this sort of like cosmic purpose. Just existing is enough. But in the sake of this sort of episode in this lecture, we're talking about the hero's journey. I have a self-prescribed mission. And I discovered what that was finally when I went through what you would call as a spiritual awakening in 2012 and 2013. I feel like my consciousness really expanded and I started to get more of a sense of what's behind the curtain. How does reality work? Why are we all here? What is the meaning of this? Why do we suffer? Why do we win? Why do we fail? What does it all mean? So as I go through a spiritual awakening, I'm starting to discover more about myself and more about being an actor and a filmmaker. But part of that became this sort of consciousness journey into metaphysics and spirit science. And into that, I got really big into the concept of extraterrestrials and life on other planets. And as you research that topic, but you don't do it through the History Channel, and you don't do it through television, and you don't just watch sci-fi movies, but you really dig in and start looking into alternative news and alternative media, you can find a lot more information about the concept of extraterrestrials. So as I got into that, my medium, my platform for that was channeling. So, going into an altered consciousness brainwave state and communicating to other consciousness, other entities, other beings. To the concept of channeling was my vehicle into learning more about extraterrestrials and life on other planets. And I learned a lot of information that you just can't find through mainstream media. So that really helped sort of crack me open in a sense. And when I started diving into that content, then I started to have these downloads, and I was unlocking these memories that I think were, like, in a sense, almost coded in my DNA, or I was downloading them from from source in a sense. And I was having memories and visions of myself, but life on another planet, for example, or existing as an extraterrestrial somewhere else, not as part of Earth. And these visions of mine, they weren't, say, for example, just my imagination. They were actually memories. And as I started to decide to investigate this further, because this phenomenon was very strange, I'm like, why am I having these visions or these memories, very elaborate memories of being in wars and being, interstellar, where we have spaceships and we're having all these kinds of like cosmic battles with all these types of extraterrestrials, aliens, things that you've seen in Star Wars movies or dystopian movies, things like that. All of this was very real for me in another lifetime. And so I keep investigating this. And then as I start downloading more and more memories about this alter ego, this alternate identity of myself, then I decide, well, you know what? I'm learning so much more about this, and I identify with it so much that I think I want to use my my creative skills, my medium, which my language, which is a filmmaker and videographer, to maybe tell a story about this character, this hero in a sense, who was on a very important mission, that I identify as a counterpart of mine from another reality, from another planet, from another time. And we'll call this character Sirius. And so as I start to discover more about this person, this extraterrestrial from the Sirius constellation, and I start to identify more and more with his story and how it relates to planet Earth and how it relates to me as Daniel James, then I have another sort of consciousness awakening where I'm realizing now that these sort of visions and stuff are just memories from another lifetime. And that meant a lot to me. And then when you feel this, like a knowingness that aliens do exist and you are one, and we all probably are aliens, in another way, in another version of reality, then it became sort of my mission, my hero's journey, to sort of translate the existence of extraterrestrials and my counterpart Sirius from this other version of reality, and translate it into a platform, into a medium that we as humans on Earth identify and are attracted to and resonate with, which is entertainment. That's video games, comic books, TV shows, movies. All of these things, these entertainment platforms where a main character like Neo from The Matrix, for example, is on a hero's journey. He has a life-altering mission that he has to go on a quest to reach a goal, and then ultimately have some sort of victory, some sort of end result. And as this person goes through the journey, then they are ultimately changed in powerful ways, just for the sake of having gone through it, for the experience of living that journey. And so I take this character Sirius, who is an extraterrestrial counterpart of mine from the Sirius constellation, and I adapt it to screenplay. I adapt it to short films, to web series, even cartoons. I've written this story in multiple sort of artistic platforms and mediums to try to tell it. And I realized that when I set out to be an actor and a filmmaker in about 2009, even when I'd been doing it since I was a little kid in my backyard with like a fucking, the old brick VHS recorder, I was making short films when I was a kid on these things, on these VHS tapes,
Absolutely.
because I've been doing it since I was 13. So like, when you're doing this that for that long, that it's the way for you. And we all ask yourself right now in that moment, maybe you have this thing that's always called to you, whether it's a certain career path or a certain artistic sort of medium like music or painting or working with, clay or wood or drawing, whatever it is for you that speaks to you, that, just sort of activates your soul. For me, acting and filmmaking was my language. That was my vehicle. So I take this serious character and I apply it to myself, and then my art, which is filmmaking, acting, writing, screenplays, all of that thing, directing, shooting, editing, all of what it takes to make a movie. I take this serious story and I adapt it into film. And I've done this several times throughout the years, and I'm currently in the process of doing another one right now, which is my biggest effort. And so as it relates to the hero's journey, I realized that in studying the concept of extraterrestrials and life on other planets, I discovered the concept of star seeds. So there is something called an earth seed and a star seed, and they're similar in the sense that earth seeds are beings that have a long lineage of incarnational cycles that more or less originate on planet Earth or inside planet Earth, because as we've discussed in the past, there's the concept of breakaway civilizations. We have lots of sort of intraterrestrial races that exist inside planet Earth that civilians know nothing about. These are sort of like the ETs that you would see in like Star Trek and Star Wars, but they exist all around us. And some of them are civilizations that are extinct and no longer are here anymore, but they existed before humans. And like I said, some still exist here now. But if you are a being, say for example, you're a human now, but you could be an Earth seed, because you could have a long lineage of incarnations on or inside planet Earth, either as a human or say for example, another intraterrestrial planetary race that no longer exists, but your soul, your consciousness is still here and incarnating as these other races. So that would be an earth seed. A star seed is the same thing, but interstellar. So we're talking about extraterrestrial entities, much like humans, that are the kinds that you see in all the TV shows and movies, which are all very derived from real races and to some degree. You as a soul, as a fractal, as a consciousness, you might have incarnations amongst these other extraterrestrial races from other planets and other densities and dimensions that are off Earth. So if you, say, for example, exist in one of these other races, but you are an infinite multidimensional being that has several incarnations, then Frater Crow and Daniel James is just one of many.
Absolutely.
And this is our human aspect that we're experiencing now in these 3D human avatars. But that does not mean that you don't exist many other places, if not hundreds or thousands or countless other races and civilizations where you exist. You just don't know about them now because it isn't relevant for your human 3D incarnation as Daniel James or Frater to really know about those races or connect with them very much, because right now you're having this 3D human experience and that's what's important. But it doesn't mean that these other ones don't exist. So what I'm saying is you could potentially be a star seed from another civilization, from another planet, from another version of reality where there are very real civilizations and races just like humans. We are just humans here, and somewhere else you're a Syrian, or you are an Antarian, or you are an Orion, or you are a Denibian or Centaurian, or any number of extraterrestrial races that come from other star systems. So with that big speech being said, that's what a star seed is. That means that I'm Daniel James now in a human body, but my star seed origin could actually come from, say, for example, Sirius or the Pleiades, to give you an example. So I'm a human being having a human experience, but my starseed origins are from somewhere else. Many people on Earth who are very passionate about the planet are Earth seeds, because they have a long history of being here and they care a lot about this planet and Earthlings and every other race that exists here, because they identify with, in a sense, being from here. So I had to give you guys that big lecture on the concept of star seeds and earth seeds, because what I'm telling you is that I identify as Daniel James, but I also identify as Sirius from the Sirius constellation, who he has a real name. I'm just not going to say it on the internet. But we call him Sirius as a code name from just where he's from. So I'm a star seed from the Sirius constellation, from Sirius B. So with that being said, when I learned all of this information, it was almost like a download that came in the form of memories, that I knew that I had to tell this story in sort of my human language, which is film and acting and directing and producing stories. And part of that hero's journey, like you were writing sort of a 3-act structure in a play or a screenplay or a film, is integrating the hero's journey. So Sirius is on a mission to rescue his people. Their planet was destroyed, and he's looking for more of his people that actually fled to planet Earth in hiding. And in doing so, he finds out that there's this sort of war over the consciousness of Earth. And that's sort of his hero's journey. His mission is to help his people, and that leads him to Earth. And then he finds out how important Earth is to the total story. And as Daniel James, I happen to exist here as a human right now. So my version of Daniel James, Earth is my sort of battleground, where for Sirius, he's interstellar, he's from other planets, but his story brings him to Earth because this is where his starseeds are, this is where his people are, his refugees are. So that's sort of the story of Oma, this film that I'm producing. And it ties directly into me. So my hero's journey then is to, in a sense, tell the story of Sirius. And the reason why I resonate with this concept so much and why it's so important to me, why I actually self-prescribe this as being like my mission on Earth, my reason for existing, is I fell in love with the concept of helping other people discover their starseed origins and build bridges, in a sense, bridging the gap between Earth and humanity to their Earth seed origins and their starseed origins. Which, if you're conscious and you're listening to this right now and you don't think I'm a total fucking freak, then you probably resonate with this to a degree. And if you can understand this and accept it at all, then I would go as far as to assume that you probably have starseed origins, or you probably have Earth seed origins. Because people who don't, who are very sort of planetary, they're very, very human, and they're very anchored in the 3D reality, and they can't accept things like this. They just won't consider it, and they'll say, no, what you're saying is fiction. And I respect that. That's okay. But I'm speaking from my own perspective, that it was important to me that throughout my becoming a filmmaker and an actor, and throughout my process of learning metaphysics and learning about extraterrestrials and then actually teaching it to other people, I discovered so many, I want to say in the hundreds of people since 2013 that do agree. They do understand what I'm saying. They are interested in learning about this. They do feel like maybe they have an incarnation and an identity in another race or on another planet or as another species. And although they don't have the language for that, they don't have the words for it, they don't know how to put it into terms and definitions, they have a calling, they have a knowingness that there is more to themselves than just this fractal, this one identity as a human. So when I realized that I could discover my starseed origins, and I don't have time to explain it tonight, but I have 100,000% confirmation to you guys without a shadow of a doubt that I do have a starseed origin from the Sirius constellation, and is a very real entity. He's a very real being. He's another aspect of me. I know that he exists as real as you and I. What I'm saying is you probably have them too. And it became passionate to me through my storytelling and my films to work in this sort of consciousness energy to help other people discover who those races and civilizations are that you might also exist in now. And I'm not saying you come from there, but I'm saying you might exist there at the same time as you exist here as a starseed or an Earth seed. Like, say, for example, people ask me a lot, well, can you give me an example of who or what an Earth seed is? There's a race called the Agarthans. You can look them up, you can research them. But in the popular series Star Trek, Spock, his civilization, the Vulcan, I believe, they were actually based on the Agarthans. They look very humanoid, they have pointy ears, they're taller than us, they're very conscious and very spiritual. In some degrees more technologically advanced than us, but the Vulcans were just stolen from the Agarthans as a race. A lot of times, like anything in like Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, any of those fantasy films, they're just taking information that really exists and then skewing it and distorting it to be a work of fiction. But they're really just like taking real facts from other places. So the Agarthans are an intrastellar race, intrastellar inside of our planet. You could almost sort of like, to give you guys the best description, think of them as like the elves from Lord of the Rings. That's a good description of what the Agarthans look like and what their civilization is like. And they're very real like you and I, and they exist right now inside planet Earth. So if you are an Earth seed, you might have an incarnation amongst the Agarthans now, or you may have been one in the past, and then when you died, you incarnated as a human on planet Earth on the surface level as a civilian. So that gives you guys another description of what Earth seeds are, because people ask me all the time what that means, to give them an example, and I think that helps. So Lord of the Rings elves, or the Vulcans from Star Trek, those are basically Agarthans, and they're Earth-based. So anyways, it became really important to me as part of my hero's journey as a starseed to help people connect to their Earth seed and their starseed origins. And I realized that there is a way that I can do that. And when I figured out how that it works, it was so exciting, and I became so passionate and resonated with this so much that I prescribed it as my life's work. I said, if I can do this, then it will help activate people. It will help trigger soul memories and DNA memories that they probably have from being a race as a starseed or an Earth seed themselves, and it will help unlock DNA memories and codes from their Akashic records, in a sense, to help discover what other incarnations they have, which really helps them expand in their consciousness, which is one of my highest excitements, is to help people expand in consciousness and look at reality differently. It's very exciting to me. So I found out how to help people discover their starseed and earthseed origins. It's actually there's a couple ways that you can do it. There's actually a way that I can just do it for them, but instead I found a way to actually do it through my films. So if you're familiar with ceremonial magic, you're familiar with using what we've discussed in the past, like divination tools. I know Frater and I have discussed this concept many times before, but you can actually code, or you can imbue, you can supercharge items or elements with intentional energy that can, in a sense, have an effect. Excuse me. And you would only ever want to do this for good. You can certainly do it for evil. You can certainly do it to harm people, but I that's not my MO. That's not how I work. Instead, what excites me is part of my mission is to help people connect to their star origins or their earthseed origins. So I found a way to imbue my art with energy triggering codes that can activate soul memory. And soul memory is boundless, it's formless, it's not limited to your brain or to your physical body or to your physical DNA. But instead it cuts to the ether, it cuts to source energy, which doesn't have the limitation of physicality. Because it's like an energy. Like, say, for example, if you do a psychedelic, you do a plant medicine, it can have a psychedelic, psychotropic, spiritual effect on you. Well, plant medicine is not the only thing. If you are just exposed to certain things that are coded to trigger you or to activate you in a certain way, like a divination tool can, then this will have the same effect or a similar effect or a desired effect. So I found a way to imbue my art with memory triggering energy. And when I realized that I could do that, that became sort of my mission. So to summarize sort of my hero's journey, I'm in my second half of my 30s now, and I've had my fair share of challenges, specifically medical challenges. You know, I've been married, I've been through a divorce. I've been in, horrible car accidents where it's like, wow, how did I survive that? I've been in house fires where my whole house burnt to the ground. I've had near-death experiences probably 3 or 4 times. I have been financially wealthy. I have been financially poor. I've been through a wide variety of very colorful experiences that make up what is a human life. And I'm very grateful and appreciative of all of them, specifically my journey in filmmaking and being a videographer, because not only is it so exciting for me to tell stories through film, but I absolutely love making films for other people and helping people who don't know how to make movies, helping them tell their stories through film as well is equally exciting for me. And that another part of my hero's journey is forming connections to people, and my way of speaking that language is through film. And that's one little point that I have to make, Frater, is like, you as a friend of mine have been a huge part of my personal hero's journey. We've told the story many times on the shows, but when I was sort of just starting as a career-based videographer, Freighter was one of my first customers ever. When I just moved to Pittsburgh from Buffalo, New York, and I think it was 2015, I went on like a Facebook group, a music group, and I was like, "Hey, I'm a videographer. I just moved to town and I'm looking to do some music videos for people. I'm like a little new, but I know what I'm doing and I love doing it. So let's collaborate." And he was the first person to respond and hired me immediately. And we made a music video together, and I fucking loved it, and he fucking loved it. And from that point, we had a very healthy, very constructive relationship and a friendship going forward, collaborating as artists. He was the music creative and I was the video creative, and we had so many fun collaborations that not only helped me grow as a filmmaker, and I learned a lot about filmmaking just in the process of doing your music videos for you, but it also helped, support my cost of living, which is also what every artist could ever hope for, is that he could make a little bit of money doing what he loves. And you helped me with that. And it grew and it snowballed into like so many other areas of being creative that I'm so grateful for. And then, over the course of making music videos together, then we became actual friends. And now we have this show together, and this is like, we've done multiple seasons, and just doing this show is also another part of my hero's journey, because I get to express myself in this way. I get to talk about really fun, esoteric, paranormal things that are exciting and so many people are curious about, and oftentimes uncomfortable sort of investigating or asking questions about in their friends and family circles. So we have provided a safe place for people who want to express their stories and ask questions like this. This show has been a huge platform for me, and part of my hero's journey in my own growth as not just an actor and a filmmaker, but also somebody passionate about metaphysics and spirit science and being able to express myself. So our partnership, my friend, has been a huge part of my hero's journey. They run parallel together. They're all sort of intertwined and interwoven. And when it's your turn to spit your shit, I don't know how much I have affected your hero's journey, but I know that because being a filmmaker and growing as a filmmaker was so important and crucial to my respective path, you were a big part of that, and being, a vehicle of giving me space to grow within. So thank you for that, my friend. And so as I tie up my hero's journey, as I tie up my hero's journey, my self-prescribed mission on Earth as a starseed, having a human experience as Daniel James, is to help people expand in their consciousness, help them tell their stories, and tell my story of my counterpart, a parallel incarnation of mine, Sirius from the Sirius constellation, who was and is still involved in something called the Orion Wars, which has a direct impact on planet Earth and all of humans, even now, and helping people bridge the gap from their human identity to their starseed origins or their earthseed origins. Because you might ask, okay, well, why is it relevant to me to know what those are or who those aspects of myself are? Because the more you learn about reality, the more you learn about nature, then your definition of nature expands to having more become natural to you. And what we want is to create more of what's natural in your consciousness, so that your reality can expand and your ability to be more in charge of your life can expand, because knowledge is power. And the more you know about yourself, that includes your earth seed and your star seed origins, then the more empowered you are as a human now. So that is my hero's journey. And I discovered that in 2013, and I have been working on it now into the second half of my 30s. And maybe there is no end to the destination. Maybe there's no destination to get to. The process, in a sense, is the journey, and I'm okay with that. But I do feel like, in terms of prescribing myself as having this mission as Sirius and Daniel, to tell the story of the Orion Wars and my incarnation from the Sirius constellation, and how that will help planet Earth and expand the consciousness of planet Earth. I feel like I'm achieving that now. I feel like I will absolutely achieve that goal as a mission, as a human. And my hero's journey, in a sense, will sort of feel like it can conclude. Not that it needs to, but it will feel very resolved. It would feel like a chapter will be closed when I finish my work and can say, you know what? I built the bridge, to the stars for people, and if they want to cross that bridge, they can. But my work here is done in a sense, and so my hero's journey is to be a filmmaker and a storyteller and help expand the consciousness of people who are looking to learn more about reality. And that's my hero's journey. That's my big speech. I appreciate you guys for listening to me ramble. But that is my sort of, in a sense, version of the hero's journey. And that's, to be candid and honest with you, that's the one that I'm on, to share that with you. And I hope the reason why I was so specific with everything is, as you guys listen to me speak, I hope that you can identify your own hero's journey and maybe sort of look around in your life, the people in your life, the key players in your life, the work that you do, your art, your career, whatever it is, your passions. You can assign a hero's journey to yourself, and then you can, figure out how to continue pursuing that if that excites you, if you're passionate about that. But we all have a hero's journey. That's mine. The end.
No, thank you very much, brother, for sharing it with everyone. It's been a long journey, as you said. I mean, I look at myself, and it's very similar. Where I think that my hero's journey started long before this incarnation,
Yes.
has happened. But we'll focus, for purposes of the show and explaining on this specific one. And it's been wild because if you would have asked me where it started different points in my life, I would have told you different points in my life, that I would believe that my hero's journey, understanding the term and what it stood for, would have started. But looking back in hindsight now with where I'm currently at, I think my hero's journey kind of started around the 12 to 14-year range.
Hmm.
Reason being is by the time I was roughly 12 or 13 years old, my parents had divorced and split. My mom was now trying to find a new relationship after a little while of the separation. So she, had a partner in New Jersey, and she would go out there sometimes for a week or for a weekend. She'd be gone a good bit. My brothers at this point had reached adulthood. I was 8 years they're younger. So by the time I was 12, 13, they were moved out.
Okay.
So, there was a point by 13 where I was sitting by myself a lot in my big, Victorian home that I grew up in, and which, as I talked about on the show many times before, was extremely paranormally haunted.
Hmm.
So my journey began at this stage where what I understood the foundation of family and what I understood the foundation of my life had now kind of come apart at the seams. My mom and dad
Mm.
split. I'm living with my mom, but she's kind of, here and there. She was always a great mother, so by no means do I take that away from her. But she was, searching at this point in life to find herself again. She was on her own hero's journey,
Sure.
and this began mine. My brothers were gone. I had a lot of time alone, and by 14 years old, I started journeying into other paths. So, from the time around 12 years old, I started playing guitar, really got into heavy metal music. I was the typical metal stoner kid. I wore all black, painted my fingernails black. I had long hair down to my shoulders when I was a
Bro, same.
teenager. And, by 14, I discovered Satanism and dived heavy into ritual and the occult, and didn't have any fucking clue what I was doing. And I know for some of you out there, you've heard the story. Sorry to beat a dead horse, but some of you need to hear this for the whole purpose of tonight's
Absolutely.
episode. So at 14 years old, I performed a ritual. Now, I didn't realize at that time how much that specific ritual would affect every moment from my life thereafter.
Hmm.
And this wasn't even until the last year or two that it kind of came full circle to understand more of what happened. So upon doing this ritual and this evocation of a spirit blindly, and what I mean by blindly is there's what's called, folks, blind evocation. You're not calling a specific spirit of any name. You're calling to whatever is around that's willing to come through. Well, that happened. It possessed my friend. He never was the same afterwards. I think it definitely changed the trajectory of his life and everyone involved. It was me and two of my friends, like I said. So what I didn't realize at the time is that what came through not only possessed my friend, but it also attached itself to me and began to change my life very drastically without me realizing it during the time. During my teenage years, I had a very dark monster inside of me that I can't begin to explain. And I've never
Mm.
talked about this, folks. So I had a lot of visions and fantasies of very, very horrible things. And it felt like it was natural. It felt like it naturally was coming from me, but at the same time, so unnatural would it be so fucked up in the head. And over time, it only got darker and darker, and I tried to suppress it more and more because I'm like, I can't let these monsters out of the closet. Now, as Daniel said, this was kind of an awakening for me. I performed ritual, it worked flawlessly. I came into contact with beings from other realms. I realized I had this ability. I always was communicating with the dead since I was a child. So all of these things were the formation and foreground of my hero's journey. But
Right.
I didn't realize that, it would change a lot of things. So as Daniel had said, folks, that his passion, his hero's journey led him into entertainment and producing. And it did for me as well. I began to make music. I already was playing guitar. I was already playing heavy metal. I was in a metal band. But my darkest peak hit around my rap career days. And what people don't realize is they would hear Skippy Ickham and they would hear how dope the lyrics were, but how dark and fucked up the lyrics were. And they'd be like, wow, man, your shit's so dark, but when I meet you, you're such a nice guy. What they didn't realize is they were shaking hands and looking into the eyes of a madman. And the things I were talking about were the things that I was fantasizing and envisioning about. Very, very horrible things. And I was battling this monster for a very long time. Now, one could say that that was just pieces of myself, but what I came to realize through extensive ritual and through path workings with specific entities was the day that I opened up that portal in that graveyard when I was 14 years old, that what came through actually latched itself onto me. Now, there's different terms for these type of beings: Kayumbas, larva. Some of them go by. There's another name I can't think of right now. Lemur, actually, like the animal, but not an animal,
Right.
in the spirit world. So I had one of these things attached to me, which a lot of times when Kayumbas or larvae get attached to you in the spiritual astral world, they make you become obsessed. That's their clear cut sign. Even possessions that'll happen where you become obsessed with strange things. I became obsessed with violence. I became obsessed with vile sexuality of just very fucked up things, like I
Sure.
said. And through battling that through a young age and then putting it into my music and then gaining a massive fan base around the world of listening to my sick twisted thoughts and loving me, it only fed that fuel even more. Through heavy workings, I realized that this thing was attached to me and was able to, after many, many years, pry its fucking roots out and get rid of it. Upon getting rid of this thing, everything changed. My personality went back to me. I
Right.
was always still me, but I had this cloud over me. This cloud dissipated and was gone. I awoke into the fact that I was what brought this into my life, that it's what made me into what I was, that my music was the only thing that saved me from my darkness, even though I was putting my darkness into the music. That is how it did save me. It let a little bit of that steam pressure out of the pipe so that it didn't blow. Later on, I realized, as I said, that I had kind of, openly gave myself to it. Now, over the years after that first ritual, I took time off from doing ritual. I did this ritual. It worked so flawlessly. It terrified the shit out of me that I'm like, I need to understand what I'm doing. So I took years to just read, research, analyze. But wasn't, as my other show says, stepping into the circle. I wasn't at that time. Many years later, I had a dream randomly one night of a very, very paranormal experience that I've talked about it on the show that happened in my dream. And it was about me finding a ghost town in the woods and, no one being there. And it was very obscure. And when we went back to try to find it, it was no longer there.
Right.
If listen back, folks, was one of our episodes this year. I recapped on that. But the reason I'm bringing this up is I wasn't really involved much in the occult anymore other than just reading. This dream one night in the middle of the night happened. It was so vivid, so realistic that I can't explain what happened to me. But I woke up that morning reinvigorated to get back into the circle, to pick up my athame and start practicing again deeply. I did. And through that, my entire life changed. That's when I faced the fact and understood that this thing was attached to me, that I brought it in, that I could get rid of it, that I could take back control of my life by facing the darkness and going very, very dark within. Through use of ritual, through use of meditation, through use of mantras and mudras, through use of entheogenic plant substances to allow me to go to depths of my mind that I couldn't normally reach otherwise, and was able to face myself, destroy this thing that was attached to me, but understand what it was, why it was there, because this thing that attached itself to me wasn't random. What came through that night at 14 years old was actually a spirit connected to my ancestral background as a spiritual being, not Garrett's bloodline, not Frater Crow's, bloodline, my
Sure.
spiritual essence of where I originated from,
Right.
beyond human. And since then, I've been able to unfold a mystery that has been nothing short of the most epic fantasy movie ever written. But it's not a fantasy movie, it's my life. And I've been able to dive deeper and deeper into it, explore it more, and connect more dots. And as you said, build a bridge. And that is my goal, to build a bridge to these other spiritual realms and kingdoms and connect with the beings that are there, which I've been able to do. Folks, you've seen my other shows, you've heard me talk occultism, you know I'm very versed and knowledgeable in these fields, but one thing you don't ever see me talk about is my personal practice. The reason why is it's very personal to me. But those people who have been involved in rituals with me, those people who have been involved in the inner sanctum and inner circle, have seen and experienced things that are beyond reality. And this has been my hero's journey, to go through these steps. And it's had multiple layers of peeling back. In 2021, 2021, I was heavily into workings with demonic beings, as I usually am, but this was a moment where my practice shifted from what I would say being a neophyte to being a advanced practitioner.
Hmm.
I'd been practicing for years, like I said, practiced for years earlier, always had success. So my definition of going from neophyte to good practitioner is a lot different than most. Most people would have said at my neophyte stage I was pretty advanced. I don't agree with that. Because there's a lot of rudimentary things that I didn't understand. There's a lot of things I was doing that weren't proper. But during this time period, I worked with a specific spirit that's known to be pretty, what would the word be? Pretty intense. We'll just say that. That his way of teaching is very ruthless. Now, I'm not saying that this spirit did this to me, but after making a pact with the spirit and working heavily with him, multiple members of my families died. Several of my friends died. My 2 dogs died. In a matter of 6 months, I lost my grandfather, my grandmother, my stepmother, my step-uncle, my stepfather, 2 friends, and both of my dogs in 6 months. This was the dark period of my hero's journey. Do you continue? Does this shake you just generally, that you have a hard time continuing life? Does it break you down? Does it make you depressed? Does it make you step back? Let's look at it from a practice standpoint. Did I do this? Was I involved in this? Is this going to stop my practice? Does this change the beings I work with? Am I going to be that person who prays to God when I need something, but when something goes wrong, I spit in his face like most Christians do? No, then that's what will happen in this situation. I could have cursed the spirit that I worked with and said, you did this, but he didn't. It was happenstance. But this dark period fell after a very, very serious pact with a very, very powerful entity that changed the trajectory of my life. After that happened, I faced that darkness. I pushed through it. It changed me. I faced even deeper levels of myself. And, during a lot of these stages, I had quit music. I walked away from photography with the modeling division I had. I changed a lot of pieces in my life, and a lot of people that know me and have known me and talk to me now say, man, the difference of you now from 4 or 5 years ago is just mind-boggling. Part of that is growth, but a part of that was releasing and cutting away that thing that was attached to me. And it very well was attached to me. Like I said, it took a lot of work to get this thing out. Now, it brings me to current day. And there's another spiritual awakening, another hero's journey about to begin, and it's a terrifying one. I think it's the most trying that I've ever been on. And it's saying something. People hearing that are like, what do you mean? You've went through the loneliness of a child, but facing himself and learning himself, to demons, to possession, to attachment, to all this death and pain. How could this be worse? I have been recently given the opportunity, folks, and I cannot speak much on it, and I will not speak much on it, to become a part of something and be initiated into something that doesn't happen. It is very, very rare. And it's an honor to even be approached to do so. But this will be the hardest, most trying, most tiring journey I have ever taken in my life, and probably ever will take. The work I'm about to undergo within the occult, within this organization, within something that most people know nothing about, is some of the most dangerous work there is when working with spirits. It is some of the most potent and powerful and dark work that there possibly is. But it's also some of the most life-changing, spiritual changing, rewarding, and expansive work that you can possibly ever emerge on. But it is going to take absolutely everything I have to be able to take this journey on, first and foremost, to be initiated, to move up the steps I need to become an adept of this practice. And there's no saying that I'll get through it. And it's a serious thing. A lot of people in the occult talk like, oh, I do spooky shit and they talk of the danger, but a lot of it's just fluff and fucking costumes and LARPing. There is real shit out there that can strike you dead overnight. And that's not a joke. It's not fancy. It's not ooky spooky. I don't give a shit about fame and ooky spookiness. There's a very real possibility that the journey I'm about to take on can kill me and will kill me. Maybe it won't. We'll see what happens. I have no fear. I'm hesitant, not in the sense of backing off from it, but in the fact that I have my armor on. I have my shield. I have my sword. We're about to set off to go slay the dragon. Who knows how the journey will end? I'm hopeful, but it's hard to say. So my hero's journey, as I said, has gone through many levels, many shapes, many layers. And I'm just very thankful that over the years, folks, I've been able to discover deeper levels of myself. I've been able to experience the good and the triumphs and the victories as equally as I'm happy that I've got to experience the pain, the losses, the failures, and the lessons that have made me into who I am today. A lot of times people curse those losses. They curse those bad moments, those roadblocks, those trials and tribulations. No, they make you into who you are just as much as the victories do. So if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be 2023, clear of mind, strong of character, and powerful of will, and be getting opportunities that only rare fragments of human beings get to do. And I'm excited for it. Like I said, that's why I am also stepping back from a lot of things. That's why I left all groups on Facebook. That's why I'm not mentoring anybody anymore except for one student. That's why I am not really doing much outside events. That's why my paranormal team keeps on the down low. That's why my Knights of the Nephilim radio show ends at the end of next month. I love it. It's my baby. But I can't focus on what I need to in such a hostile environment that I'm about to enter into, while being pulled a million different directions. I have to cut so much of what I love away to focus on the journey to come. But this has been foretold, not only in this life, but through astral projection, through lucid dreaming, through different methods that I've used to connect to other pieces of myself and other past lives. I've been shown a very interesting path that this has been foretold for a very long time. That this is all leading up to a precipice of not necessarily the end game, but what the next stage has to be for the end game. And I'm very thankful. Some of you have heard me talk in the last part here that I had chose to come back here. There was a video I did a couple years ago. It was on my old Facebook account before fucking Forces of Beat booted me. That I had very, very deep visions through specific rituals that I did of a past life where I chose to actually come back to this plane to help a few other individuals that have stayed inside what Daniel would call I believe he used the term for spirit pod, or something along the family pods, where several people will come back life after life and be centered around one another. And
a cluster group.
A cluster
soul
group,
cluster.
Yeah. Soul cluster, that's what it might have been, a soul pod. And I've discovered that's very true, and I've been around some people many, many times before, and I had to come back to help a few of them. And I've been here several lives since then. But through that, I've also learned lessons that I needed to learn as a being who already didn't have to come back. It's a never-ending game. Even if you ascend, even if you reach the level of not having to return, in the return, there's always going to be new lessons learned. This is the battleground. This is the Purgatorian pit. This is boot camp, folks. We come here, we train, we learn, we grow, or we fail, and it changes everything to come for ourselves and every other being that we come into contact with, both physical and ethereal, for all time to come. It never
That's right.
ends. It just keeps
That's right.
it
It's
just
forever.
keeps changing. It's forever. We're in an endless wheel of fuckery, and it's beautiful and it's horrible all at the same time. So grip in, enjoy it. But that personally for me has been my hero's journey. But
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
before I finish, Daniel, you have been a very big part of that because, like I
Mhm.
said, during my rap days, if I wouldn't have had the outlet of my music, I would have died. And my outlet of music took many different forms, from not only my music and albums to my live shows to battles to very much the visualization that represented who Skippy Ickham was, what I was wanting to put out there, the message I was trying to send of my violent lyrics, because it was an outlet for me to get the darkness out, but it was an outlet for my fans to listen and let their darkness out by listening. So it was a double-sided medicine that saved my life and saved so many lives of those listening. So many times over the years, fans reached out and said, your music or your videos or your message have saved me. And it was so funny because at the same time, I'm like, I don't think you guys realize how true this music is. So I'm glad it saved you, but like, I want to wipe out the human race. And, it was very, very rewarding by being able to do that. And meeting you brought an element to my music that I wanted to put out for years that I just didn't have anybody that I felt represented my vision. I had other opportunities to work with other videographers. I had talked to other videographers. I never pulled the trigger on it. No one ever seemed like they were resonant of what I was trying to do. And, whenever I seen your post, whenever we reached out and talked to one another, I just had a feeling that I'm like, this guy's going to be the guy. And then we did the music video for Sickness, and the rest is in the bag. I think eight or nine videos later, and several other projects and documentaries, and
Yeah.
now 4 seasons of Pong, and just so many other things that are still yet to come, brother. That our hero's journey has been individual, but it has also been duo and side by side in its own ways. And I'm very thankful to have you in my life. Thankful
Right
to all
on.
you listeners out there for all your support in my music and Daniel and I's ventures, his documentaries, his videography, and of course, our show. It has meant so much to us to allow us a pedestal to talk about the obscure and talk about the esoteric and occult and the metaphysical and the paranormal and supernatural and the undiscovered and unknown, because there's so much out there. And maybe a lot of that is part of your hero's journey, because as Daniel said, a lot of hero's journeys metaphysical. There's usually a common element of magic or supernatural phenomena in all of those movies, in all of those stories. Think of Frodo meeting Gandalf and going off with Gandalf the wizard, the magic element. There's always that magic in the story, because there's always those moments that are undefinable by normal human logic or scientific logic that happen, that change us. It can't be explained, because we're spiritual beings living a material life.
That's right.
And the sooner you tap into that and realize that this is just temporary, this is just your vehicle, the sooner you get further along the stages of your hero's journey.
And this feels great. This feels really good to express, and I love that our show is a platform for people, much like us, to investigate in the esoteric and express themselves. And one thing you said that I didn't touch on that I'm glad you mentioned is that part of the hero's journey, oftentimes, it does come with stakes and risk and danger. And I think that one thing that the movies get wrong is that the hero doesn't always win. He doesn't always make it out, or he doesn't always have a happy ending, but that is in itself still very constructive and still very positive from a higher dimensional perspective. We here in the IRL and in the 3D human reality, being our own heroes of our own journey, like Frater said, there are stakes and risks in what our endeavors are. And one thing I didn't mention about my hero's journey is the risk and the danger involved. Is one thing, if you're into the concept of disclosure and alternative media and alternative history and alternative science, there are certain things you're not allowed to say. There are certain things you're not allowed to talk about. Certain names you can't use, certain people you can't depict, or things that if you are going to depict, then you have to skew it. You have to distort it in a way that fits agendas. The problem with me is that I'm more of the red pill, I'm more of the Neo, and less of the Agent Smith, in a sense where it's like I'm breaking some rules here. I'm doing some things that get you in trouble in a sense, are dangerous. And so it's like with Frater and doing his work and the stakes involved with what he has to do as part of his hero's journey, he's almost in a sense doing the boss battle right now. And I've used that same analogy in the creation of this film that I'm working on, that this film is my life's boss battle. If you're familiar with video games and game terminology, you are the player. You can die and you can respawn, but you have so many resources until you get to a boss and you have to fight the boss. And I'm doing my boss battle right now with Oma, and there are stakes, and there have been challenges along the way making this movie, which I identify as my life's work, that I've almost maybe, I don't know, maybe like almost not been able to make it. I've almost not been able to beat the boss, and I've died like 300,000 times and respawned from the beginning to beat this challenge. And every time I do it, I have less health. I have less med kits and resources to get through it. But we're almost there. We're in the home stretch. And then once I do release this film, this movie is like my life's work here that I've been, building my whole life forever. It comes with a whole new portal of opportunity, positive, life-changing opportunity, and major fucking risks for like my reality. So I'm here for it. This is what I came to do. This is my life's work. I'm not backing down from the boss battle. I'm here for it. I'm going to do what I came here to do no matter what. And like I said, whether or not the movies, there's always, the hero always wins. Well, we'll see. Right, Frater? We'll see.
We'll see. And one thing I would say, and I kind of mentioned it during my recap on my hero's journey, is that, folks, you don't have to like the falls. You don't have to like the bumps and bruises, but you should appreciate and respect them. One thing I can say is, someone who works with chthonic energies and currents, with daemons and demons, and a lot of very nasty beings out there that a lot of people use in movies to spook people.
Right.
They're indifferent to good and bad. They just are.
Right.
So sometimes what they bring along with them are their energies, how they make you feel, and what kind of havoc they bring into your life. It's not necessarily because they're trying to harm you. It's not because they're malicious towards you. It's just because they are what they are and how they are. And
their nature.
That's their nature. You know what I mean? They might help you and be willing to move your life forward, but they also wouldn't really care if you just fucking vanished and weren't part of their existence at all, or vice versa. So why I get to this is, a lot of times practitioners, and I've taught this many times over the years to different students, is people think that they've done something wrong when everything goes wrong. But what I tell them is, sometimes you have to shake the shit out of the foundation to knock off all the loose mortar to know where the weaknesses of your foundation is. If you just build on top of loose brick, you're not making the foundation stronger. You just added more weight onto something that's already faulty. So when you shake the hell out of the building and all these bricks fall, and now your building looks like it's like, rickety and it's not going to stand. No, now you know what is strong on the building, and now you know the pieces you need to replace. So what happens a lot in life when you work with spirits and when you go on these journeys is, you'll encounter things that'll throw roadblocks in front of you, Dan, as you are facing even right now, constantly trying to stop you. And it might be trying to stop you.
Right.
But also, I feel that sometimes those pieces have to happen to make it take longer than you expected, to make it go different directions than you expected.
I agree.
Because you can never expect. In ceremonial and ritual magic, you can expect, you can visualize the outcome, but you can't expect it, or shouldn't expect it. And what I mean by that is, you can't expect it to fit exactly in this box.
That's right.
You have to have a vision of an outcome this big, and it'll tighten into its own outcome. But when you vision it only being this, it's going to miss target. You're going to completely miss the whole picture.
That's right.
So long-winded is what I'm saying, folks, is that sometimes when you're forced to go left when you really wanted to go right, you can look at it like, oh, what a horrible thing. I never wanted to come this way. But sometimes in hindsight, not days, not weeks, not months, but sometimes even years, decades later, we look back and we say, holy shit, I had to go left. If I would have went right, it would have led me into right where I thought I needed to be, and I would have completely never been where I'm at now. I would have never even got the project out. I thought that I would have got the project out sooner. It would have actually never happened. And
Facts.
sometimes it needs that hindsight. So don't be afraid to fail. Embrace the failures. Embrace the hurt. Embrace the
That's
pain.
facts.
It'll fucking build you and make you. And at the end of the day, it makes for a good story. Who wants to watch a movie where the character zips from point A to point Z?
Gets exactly
characters
what
to
he wants
fight.
without any struggle.
Yeah, imagine Frodo in Lord of the Rings, and I've used that several times because out of all the ones I mentioned, Lord of the Rings is my favorite. Imagine Frodo just being like, "I'm gonna go take this ring to Mount Mordor and throw it in," and he just walks a couple miles or however many miles. Nothing stops him, nothing hinders him, and he's just like, bloop. Movie. Here's the end title credits. Would anybody want to watch that movie? No. The hero's journey has to be made on all of the bumps
struggle.
and bruises and the struggle, because that's what makes it the hero's journey. So get out there, get fucked up, get bumps and bruises, face the world, face yourself, and ascend, guys and gals.
Live your life.
Live your life. Other than that, thank you so much to everybody who tuned in this evening, left us comments. We truly
Chat.
appreciate
Thank you,
it.
chat.
Thank you, chat. I mean, there's so many on there. Thank you to everybody. We have one that said he's starting a new podcast earlier in the show. That was my buddy Luke. Good luck to you, man. He says he's making one on Bigfoot and UFOs. Good luck to you. It's an awesome scene to be a part of and make shows on. I wish you well on that. Everybody else has shared your own experiences and answered back to what we were saying. Thank you. And we will be back in 2 weeks. And I know this is kind of a special episode because it's a Wednesday night. We didn't even talk about that, but figured you guys kind of understood. We will be back in 2 weeks, which would be, I think, the week of the 6th, or week of the 4th, which would be the 7th, excuse me. And we'll be back with another great episode. We'll have a flyer out coming up on what that episode will be about. If you want to email us, let us know what you like, didn't like, what you want to see us do differently, who you want to have on the show or have us have on the show, anything of the sort. Don't hesitate to hit celestialoddities@gmail.com. Again, that is celestialoddities@gmail.com. You can also join the Celestial Oddities Paranormal Paranormal Guys Facebook group page. That's a tongue twister. And share your experiences. I'm going to post a post up. I've talked about it on the show. My buddy reposted this morning the trail cam pictures that his dad got on his trail cam of the brownie, the little elemental.
Oh, dude, I want to see that.
They're fucking phenomenal. I haven't seen them in a couple of years. I've seen it again today, and I was so psyched. And I'm posting in the group, so I'll do that in about 10 minutes. But check that out. And 3 episodes left of Knights of the Nephilim in December. We got Frauder Barabbas, we have Jack Rail, and we have Baal Cadmon. You couldn't finish with 3 more amazing, prolific authors and practitioners out there. So make sure you check them out throughout December. And we love you guys. We will talk to you all soon.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, guys. Take care.